Want to start off just with brief introductions. My name is Stacey Alapai, and I am one of the project leaders of the Upcountry Energy Resilience Project, which I hope to have a separate time to really dive into what that project is about. But the reason why we are here today is simply to start understanding our bills at that level of and get a better handle on energy, what are the different fees this is for, and just to introduce a little bit of why I got involved in this. I never really was involved in energy conversations until about a year ago, when I saw a steep increase in my bill. And it was seemingly unexplained to me. And I didn't really even know where to start trying to figure out why my bill had basically doubled in a couple of months. And I was calling, the number on the back of my bill because that was the only number available to me. And it wasn't until I really started researching it and meeting different people, that I realized there's all these different entities that are involved in these energy conversations. It's not just HECO. There's also Hawai'i Energy and Hawaii Natural Energy Institute and a bunch of other ones, which we will get into. But essentially, that is the catalyst of why I brought some of these people here today. And I will pass it off to our friends from HECO, Shayna and Peter, so you can briefly introduce yourselves as well. And then we'll go to Jennie and then Mike.
Aloha, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shayna Decker, Director of Community and Government Relations here for Hawaiian Electric on Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. I've been with the company now for about 12 years, based right out of Kahului, a Maui girl. So I'm very excited to present to you folks and be here with you folks today to share more about Hawaiian Electric and to be here with Peter, who will be talking more about understanding your electric bill. Appreciate the time and connection with all of you. I'll turn it over to Peter.
Thank you, Shayna. Good afternoon. My name is Peter Young. I'm the Director of Pricing, which means we're responsible for setting rates and setting cost recoveries in the regulatory group. So we set the numbers on the bill. We've been invited to explain that to you this afternoon. I look forward to that. Thank you for having us today.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennie Potter. I am currently a faculty energy specialist with the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute at the University of Hawaii. I served as commissioner at the Public Utilities Commission for several years from 2018 to 2022. And so I was involved with approving the rates that Peter had submitted for review. Yeah, so I'm happy to be here with you all.
Hi, I'm Mike Angelo, Executive Director, Division of Consumer Advocacy. Our role is we advocate for consumers on matters of regulated utility matters across a wide variety of sectors: electricity, water, wastewater, telecom, gas, and also intra-island transport on Young Brothers and one ferry service between Maui and Lanai. Happy to be here today and appreciate the opportunity to interact with everyone. We're another party that is investigating and representing customers' interests as these rates are being set. Thank you.
So just a couple of housekeeping things. We are recording this meeting. So if you don't want to be on camera and recorded, you're welcome to turn your cameras off. And please do utilize the chat throughout the meeting. If questions come up, we want to answer them at the end. And I will be moderating the chat for Q&A. And then just a reminder to keep your microphones off. And when we do get to the Q&A, to raise your hand if you'd rather speak than type. And so Hawaiian Electric has prepared a PowerPoint for us to go over some of the foundational knowledge about reading your bill. And so I will hand it off to them.
Thank you, Stacey. And I think, Shayna, you're going to advance slides for me. Great. So we're going to talk about the electric bill, and we're going to start with a sample of Maui residential customer electric bill for a customer that uses 500 kilowatt hours. We put this on a slide, but for those of you who actually receive a Maui bill, the section on the left hand of the slide is really the first page that you see on your bill. And the section on the right hand with the detail and a lot of words on the bottom, that's on the backside, or that's page 2 of your bill. So I wanted to start by drawing your attention to the bar graph on the left-hand side and the quantities and numbers right there where the bar graph is. What we're doing here is we're providing some history of the kilowatt hour usage on your bills. So the date there right in the middle of that bar section is the date of your bill, and it shows you the kilowatt hours that were used in that billing period. And next to it, that amount is your billed amount. And what we try to provide here is some history to allow you to see what your bill looks like across months. And we do that in a couple of ways. The first way is to take your kilowatt hours and divide that by the number of days in the bill to show you an average kilowatt hour usage per day. And that gives you a feeling for what you normally use across the month. It allows you, if there were even more history on this page, to see whether your usage has changed, whether it's going up or down. And this is just in terms of average kilowatt usage per day or average energy usage per day. Next to that, on the extreme right, is a dollars per day number. And really that is simply the dollar value of your bill, the amount divided by the number of days in your bill. So that's another metric that says, okay, based on what I used and what the electric prices were in that particular month, it cost me this dollars and this cents per day. So this is general summary information from your total bill amount. Now the details of your particular bill, that's on the right-hand side of the bill. Right in that middle section of that page, we have a bolded title that says current charges. So these are all of the line elements that make up your monthly electric bill. I will tell you that all of them, thank you, Shana, all of them are assessed on a per kWh basis. So there's a rate per kWh that's charged for each of these line items, except for 3 of them, and I'll point those out. Let me say at the outset that all of the rates that are behind what we charge to customers are approved by the Public Utilities Commission, as Jennie pointed out. Hawaiian Electric, Maui Electric, we have no discretion to change the rates without commission approval. The other thing to note is where we have our own costs that we charge. Of course, the commission has to approve them. We also charge customers for fuel that we buy, for energy that we purchase from other companies who make energy and sell that energy to the utility. We pass that cost on and we charge the customers at cost. We don't mark up fuel or purchased energy before we charge it to customers. Okay, having said that, let's go look at the line items in the bill, starting with the customer charge. The customer charge this is one of the items that is a fixed charge. It's the same dollar amount per month. This recovers some of the fixed charges costs that we have, metering, billing, customer service charges are in this amount. The non-fuel energy charge for a residential customer recovers pretty much all of the other system costs. Your generation, your transmission, your distribution costs are charged and recovered on a per kW, cents per kWh basis in this particular line item. You'll see that energy cost recovery is typically the largest line item on a customer bill. Here it's $100.21. This is the line item that recovers the costs where we're billing you for fuel and for purchased energy that we buy. And this is the most significant line item on a customer bill. Right below that, we use an acronym. IRP is a planning cost for demand side management programs. These are separate programs that have been approved by the Commission. The Public Benefits Fund surcharge, this PBF surcharge line item, this is an approved line item that pays for energy efficiency programs. What the Public Utilities Commission does is it allows Hawaiian Electric, Maui Electric to charge customers through the PBF surcharge to collect funds that go to fund energy efficiency programs that are administered by a third party. Currently, that's Hawai'i Energy. So here is the source of Hawai'i Energy funding. It's collected on the Hawaiian Electric bill, but these are not monies for Hawaiian Electric to use. These go to Hawai'i Energy. The purchase power adjustment represents on Maui a particular item cost. For purchase power, we're collecting for the Kuehelani solar plus battery project. That's the item that's in this particular line item. So it recovers costs for that new solar plus battery project. The revenue balancing account, RBA rate adjustment, this one is a charge that's assessed on a percentage basis. This, I'm going to tell you how it works and then what it's for. So there's a percentage that we charge for this line item. The way it's approved to be collected is we add up all of the line items on your bill except energy cost recovery. So everything except the energy cost recovery, we apply a percentage that gets the RBA rate adjustment amount. Now, what is that for? Okay, currently the company is in a period of performance-based rate making. Basically, we have a 5-year plan or activity period where the company does not have a rate case. So the company has not adjusted its rates in the customer charge or the non-fuel energy charge for 5 years or sometimes more, depending on the company. But the Commission has allowed this performance-based rate-making concept for the company to adjust their revenues during this period, and it's collected through the RBA rate adjustment. It's primarily for 3 items. One, the company gets an inflation adjustment on its revenue. It's on operations and maintenance costs. It's not on capital because that's already paid for, but there's a inflation adjustment on operations and maintenance costs that is in there. The company can, with PUC approval, recover the cost of large exceptional projects that facilitate renewable energy to the grid. So if there is a large project that is a renewable energy project or creates infrastructure for a renewable energy project, that can be recovered through the RBA rate adjustment. And finally, because this is based on a performance-based rate adjustment regime, the company has certain incentives and penalties that are presented to them that have been approved by the commission. So depending on how the company performs, it can be awarded and recover certain incentives in this RBA rate adjustment, which will add to the rate. It also can have negative adjustments for penalties for poor performance on other metrics. And in fact, the company has experienced adjustments for both incentives and penalties and delivered them through the RBA rate adjustment. Last item on the bill, green infrastructure fee. This is another one that's not per kWh. This is a fixed amount that's assessed each month. These funds are collected for the state of Hawaii to help fund the state's green energy program, where the state can make loans to facilitate acquisition of green energy technologies. It may be solar or other items for residential customers. So the sum of those, 8 items is the total of the electric bill. Now, I think I wanted to go to the next slide, Shana. Okay, so there are opportunities for customers to participate in solar programs at Hawaiian Electric. Right now, our primary program is called Smart DER Export. What that means is the customer can have a solar generation at their location, can be a residential or commercial customer, and the customer can consume the power that's generated from that particular solar facility. And the customer can also, if there's more energy than the customer can consume, customer can export that energy, and there's scheduled compensation rates for the energy that the customer sends to the utility. Now, this is a little bit of a stylized presentation because in the first page of this particular customer bill, it shows we have descriptions of energy delivered, DEL, and energy received. The delivery is energy that we, the company, sends to the customer. REC received identifies energy that we've received from the customer onto the utility grid. The point I wanted to make here is this particular bill shows that we've delivered 500 kWh to this particular customer. And where that's important is, if we go to the right-hand side of the screen, is because we've delivered 500 kWh to this customer, we're billing the 500 kWh in the same way, in the same amounts as that other bill we just saw, which was also for 500 kWh. You can see that all the line items on the right-hand side are exactly the same as the previous bill, with the exception of the line that's second from the bottom, the export credit. So here is where the company provides the payment or the compensation for the solar energy that the customer exports to the utility. That credit is calculated on the appropriate rate in cents per kilowatt hour. And so you see that's a negative that reduces the bill. So this customer's bill is actually $7.76 lower than the other customer who consumed the same amount of energy, but did not export any energy to the utility. We just wanted to illustrate for you how credits get onto the customer's bill and where they're located. Finally, we wanted to talk about concerns for high bills. Now, there are a number of things that can change the customer bill. That energy cost recovery, as we discussed earlier, recovers fuel costs. Fuel costs go up and they go down, and we pass them straight through to customers. And so they can impact bills significantly when the fuel costs move significantly in either direction. Weather and the seasons do play a part. When it's hot, when it's dark, it really depends on the day and the month. The number one usage of electricity in a residential home is air conditioning, if you have it. Second highest use of energy in home is hot water. And that can depend on the season and the weather, also the number of people in the household. The length of the billing cycle is kind of an important factor that not many folks realize, but that number of days in the bill on that very first page of the bill, the company is allowed to read your meter and have a bill anywhere between 27 and 33 days per month. We try and keep that as narrow as possible, but really depending on the month, the time of your year, your bill may typically range from 29 to 31, 32 days. So this is how many times high bill concerns emerge, where you as a customer, you can see on your bill that your average kWh per day is the same. Let's say it's the same every month, but your bill can be a lot higher because in that particular month, let's say fuel costs were higher by a penny per kWh or two, and the number of days in your bill is higher than last month. Let's say it was 32 days instead of 29 days. So even though your energy usage average per day was the same as last month, in this particular month, you could have a much higher bill. We are challenged to answer that question a lot in our call center when that happens to customers who call in. So something to think about. I appreciate the time that you've spent to listen to this explanation. We do have some resources. These particular QR codes will take you to our website. the Understanding Your Bill hyperlink will describe many of the items that I have discussed in this presentation. The My Energy portal is an important resource. For those of you who have AMI meters, if you sign up to participate in this My Energy portal, you'll be able to see your energy usage during the month and not just when you get your bill. You'll be able to see energy usage by day. You can actually define hourly periods to see when you use energy in the home and sort of line it up with your understanding of what you're doing at home and when. So these are good resources that we commend to you to take advantage of. Appreciate the time this afternoon. Thank you.
Mahalo, Peter. I'm gonna switch a little bit up for our agenda just to our presenters. I do want to show some side-by-side bills that I've collected and anonymized for people. But I also wanted to get Wayne an answer to his question in the chat asking about how does a PV-enabled customer get on that program that you showed? And he has also a question about the credits and how that all works. So I'm hoping you can answer that question while I pull up some of the example bills. And if anybody else has questions, now we're going to pause and do a little bit of Q&A and then jump back into our agenda just to make sure we have time for that. Peter or Shayna, do you see the question from Wayne about the PV credits?
The PV credits. Okay, so I'm going to assume that this customer is a net energy metering customer, and there are credits that are assigned monthly and cleared at the end of the year. The program, I'm not sure what the term program means. What I was describing right at the end, the energy portal is a source of information. So that would provide the customer with an ability to see their energy usage. But the Smart DER program has a particular credit rate, and that's different from a PV net energy metering program. The Smart DER credit rates are actually less than retail. So if Wayne is comparing these to a net energy program, the compensation for energy sent to the utility under Smart DER is the rate per kWh of compensation is much less than a net energy metering program. I think we'd have to understand a little more clearly where Wayne is starting from to give him more information and explanation, Stacy. Stacy, you're muted here.
Sorry, that's great. And where would he be able to get, like, who should he reach out to get that question answered? Or who would be a good resource for that?
So he could talk to our people at the customer service line. They would be able to see what program he's on and be able to contrast that to other programs that are available. Generally speaking, if you're on a net energy metering program, that's likely the best program for you financially, even if you are not able to use all of your credits. Generally speaking, that's still superior to the current available program.
Okay, and do you guys know how many people are on the DER program currently in Maui, ideally, or if it's just this whole state, then that's fine too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know how many are currently on the DER program. It's thousands across the company,
Okay.
but I'm not sure how they're arrayed across the islands.
Okay. And I just wanted to show one of these bills. We also did a screenshot from the My Energy portal, and I hope this helps to answer John's question a little bit. If you log into your Hawaiian Electric portal, you can click on My Energy Use, and it brings you to a pretty cool place where you can rearrange the dates and the amount of time. So I made this one to be 1 day at 15-minute intervals. So it'll actually show you the usage, and there are ways to export that into different file types. If we have time at the end, I will show more about that My Energy Use portal, because that was really interesting piece to me as I was learning how to understand my own bill. But if we have time at the end, I will bring that back up. I'll prepare some screenshots that are anonymous again, so I don't broadcast my address online. And if anyone else has questions after this first part of the presentation, I would love to answer them now, or we can continue on to talk about how these fees are decided, who decides them, and just like a brief introduction into all the different entities that make decisions about energy. When customers are charged for purchased energy, does that include paying for credits returned to customers who sell energy back to the company? So is the fee the company credits to the individuals the same as the amount charged to the customers? This is a great question. To rephrase that, so like when you went through the fee breakdown, you said the biggest charge is for purchased energy, like fuel costs and whatever purchased energy is. Is that including the amount that you're buying back from these DER and other types of solar customers? And if so, is that charge equal to what you're reimbursing people for?
That's a great question. And yes, the credits that we pay customers for energy delivered to our system, they are charged back to all other customers through that line item, the energy cost recovery. Again, like with other power we buy, we don't mark that up. So if we've paid $5,000 for power from residential customers, we're charging $5,000 to all customers and not just residential customers. Energy costs go into a single pot. So the energy cost recovery, the rate that we charge per kWh, it's the same rate that we charge to every customer, whether they're residential or commercial.
Great. And then someone else was asking if HECO, I was told HECO does not make more money or profit with more power being used. Is this true? And can you explain?
So that's a really important distinction. About 15 years ago, the Public Utilities Commission approved a decoupling concept, which really means we break the link between sales, kilowatt hour sales, and revenues, dollars of revenue that we receive for billing kWh. So what happens is the commission approves the amount of dollars that the company can collect. So if in a particular year we have lots of sales, maybe tourism is booming, it's really hot, lots of commercial air conditioning load, and we get a lot more money than we're allowed, we have to make an adjustment and give that money back. And so that credit goes through the RBA rate adjustment because we're allowed to get a target amount of revenue. So if we collect too much, we have to give it back. The reverse is also true. In a particular year, let's say sales and activity is slow, and our revenue is below the allowed target, we're allowed to collect that difference up to our target. That's an adjustment that also goes through the RBA rate adjustment. That's the concept of decoupling, where sales are separated from dollars. Great question. Thank you for asking.
And then I'll do one more question, unless I see a lot of activity in the chat that was actually sent in before the meeting, and someone was asking about how renewable sources help to keep electricity prices stable. And I'm wondering if there's a way this is like reflected on the fees. And then I'm going to add another part of that from my own question of, is there a way for us to see how those, like the fuel cost affects, because it sounds like everything is a percentage except for those two that you listed. Is there a way for us to actually see or look up or have a place to reference the fuel cost, or how that that energy cost recovery fee is calculated? Oh, you're muted, Peter.
Now I'm muted because I'm excited. All right. Let me speak to the concept and then to where you can actually see it. So the idea behind renewable energy, and the company has said this out loud, so thank you for customers who are listening and repeating. The acquisition of more more renewable energy should stabilize the totality of the fuel and energy costs that customers pay. And the simple concept is the contracts that we're asking the PUC to approve are for renewable energy are fixed. We're asking we're getting an expected amount of energy, and we're paying for that energy in a fixed dollar amount. So the effective renewable energy cost should be fixed in cents per kilowatt hour. When we bring that into the system, that means we're generating less energy from our own fuel burning, oil burning generation units. So we're taking that oil price volatility out because we're substituting renewable energy in. You would have to see our energy cost recovery filings, same name as what's on the bill. Those are on our website. It's really involved, and my people put it in a really small font. But if you look at attachment 2 of those filings, you can see the proportion of company units, oil burning units, that you can see the proportion that's provided by of energy that's provided by oil burners, and the proportion that's provided by renewables. You'd actually have to study those over time to see how, as we've added renewable energy projects, the proportion of renewable energy has increased, and the proportion of oil energy has decreased. But really, that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to get that renewable energy into the system, take out the volatility of oil prices, take out the risk that oil prices in the world market, where we are a price taker, drive prices up, and Hawaii can't control the price of oil that we pay for. So to the extent that we still need oil to make our electricity, that's a problem, right? So renewable energy will help that.
Thank you, guys. And I'm hoping people can stay on a little bit after 5 if we have more questions, but I'm going to move on to Jennie's presentation about who the decision makers are when we come to these fees, and also just let people know that we are planning to do some follow-ups to this, because Hawai'i Energy is a big part of this for usage and how our behaviors impact this, but they weren't able to come today. So we're hoping to have a follow-up with them to talk a lot more about usage. But I'll let Jennie go on with her presentation. You're muted, Jennie.
Yep, I got it. Great. These are great questions that are coming from everyone. I'm really excited to hear these. So way to go, everyone. I'm happy to see you guys are thinking so hard on this. So I'm a former commissioner with the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission. So I'm here to talk a little bit about who these folks are that are making these decisions on the rates, and then a little bit about the rate case and the process itself. So I'll try and go over that pretty quickly because I think these questions that are coming in are really good. I want to start by saying that the Public Utilities Commission is comprised of 3 commissioners that are tasked with making decisions about utility filings. They regulate approximately 1,700 entities, and they are very, very busy folks because there's a lot going on in the state. So Hawaiian Electric is just one of those utilities. They do regulate electricity, they regulate gas, water, transportation, and shipping maritime, as Mike D'Angelo mentioned earlier. So getting into it, I want to share a little bit about who's involved in these rate cases. And first and foremost, obviously, the Public Utilities Commission, they're tasked with the decision making in all of the rate cases. They work very closely with all of the parties to build evidence within the proceeding, a lot of discovery. Next in the lineup is the Division of Consumer Advocacy, and that's Mike, who's here today. They are a very prominent player in this in the rate case. They do a tremendous amount of the discovery, and they build the case, all of the evidence within the proceeding, and ultimately come up with a recommended settlement with the Hawaiian Electric if they can reach a settlement. But they are a huge proponent of the ratepayers, and they are tasked with really evaluating whether the rates are just and reasonable and in the public interest, and they provide that information and evidence to the commission for decision making. Next is the interveners. These are folks that have a vested interest in the outcome of the rate case, and typically these can be nonprofit groups or environmental groups that have an issue. Typically, could be a single issue or multiple issues that they want to bring into the rate case and have a say and provide evidence in support of a specific position. And so those folks are really important in all of our proceedings. We definitely encourage interveners. Then, of course, you have Hawaiian Electric. In the case of these electric rate cases, they're the ones that file the application, and they're very important to obviously the outcome. They do negotiate with the consumer advocate to come up with a settlement, typically in most of the cases. And then we have the ratepayers, and ratepayers are seen as intricate parts of this process as well. We're always seeking input from ratepayers to provide public comment, to participate in public hearings, where the PUC has opportunities for them to weigh in on the various aspects of the rate case and any issues that they may see in those proceedings. So this is a little bit of a recap of what I just was talking about. A rate case typically lasts about 9 months. That's when generally an interim decision is issued, which is followed later by a final decision. There are thousands of pages of evidence. The PUC and the consumer advocate work tirelessly over pages and pages of evidence that are entered in. They include operational and capital costs associated with the operations of the utility. This is also where the authorized rate of return is established. That goes back to I saw Genesis had a question about how do they earn a profit. Within that RBA, or within the baseline for revenue, there's an authorized rate of return built into that. And so that's how they're earning a profit typically. There's public hearings, which I mentioned that we ask, that the commission asks for public to provide input on the rate case. And then the PUC ultimately renders a decision based on the record, everything that's put into the proceeding, and it is always in the public interest, where they're always trying to balance if the rates are just and reasonable in the public interest. That is the primary role of the PUC. So everything's been vetted and verified and thoroughly gone through with a fine-tooth comb to ensure that the rates that are presented and that are agreed upon and settled in the decision-making are truly reflective of the cost to provide service and a reasonable rate of return for the operations of the utility. So one last slide here, and then we can move on. Just wanted to touch on a little bit of what Peter had talked about. The revenue balancing adjustment is revisited 2 times a year. Typically, about right now, it's approximately 22% of the bill. It's something that does need to be adjusted on a biannual basis because there are so many moving variables that need to be evaluated. So the PUC has a pretty thorough process of looking at that adjustment. There are surcharges that are evaluated monthly by the PUC. That includes the energy cost recovery clause, and then also the purchase power adjustment clause. So those two are dollars per kWh charges. The PUC evaluates them every single month. They do a filing and they are reevaluated. The Public Benefit Fund and the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Fee Fund, those are both mandated by statute. So they are required to collect money for each of those programs to ensure that money is being passed back to the consumer for programs that will advance the clean energy efforts and initiatives of the state to get to 100% renewable, that will bring all consumers along for the ride to this renewable future and allow them to participate as much as possible through those programs. So definitely take advantage of those programs. They're there for you. That's what the charge is for, is to collect it so you can participate and it's easily accessible. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Stacy. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and April actually asked the question that I wanted to ask is, are these evaluations for adjustments in the public record, and how can like a regular old ratepayer engage with those conversations?
That's a great question. So yes, they are. Everything is transparent. It is in the public record. You typically have to go into the rate proceeding itself, and then you can file comments. But you have to be aware that those filings are even occurring. So I would recommend that you get on the daily report. There's in the PUC portal, you can sign up for a daily activity report, and it'll send a report to you, and it'll list all the filings that are coming from the utilities into the public domain, into the docket, and then you can participate by submitting questions into that docket or comments.
Awesome. And I just want to mention the PUC is something that I didn't know existed a year ago, and it's made up of 3 commissioners. And we are planning to do a much deeper dive into the PUC and all that entails, but it will probably take up the whole hour. So this is like intro to the PUC, and also the consumer advocate. So I do want to make sure we give Mike a chance to introduce the consumer advocate and the ways that we interact with them too.
Thank you. Okay, I guess I'm up. I'm gonna try and share my screen here. We'll see how this goes. Too many things opened up. Yep. Can everybody see that? Hopefully. Okay, great. Hi, my name is, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and discuss our work with the utility companies and the Public Utilities Commission on behalf of ratepayers who have electric bills that they pay to independently owned utilities. So who we are, we're a state agency that works for you, represents, protects, and advances the interest of all consumers. So that includes residential, commercial, industrial customers before the Public Utilities Commission, and we and other regulatory bodies such as the Federal Communications Commission. We're a team that's comprised of attorneys, accountants, economists, engineers, analysts, social scientists, and many more, because this work touches on such a broad range of topics. We have to consider multiple perspectives, so it's really important, and the work is very technical. We need a broad range of expertise within our within our group to be able to go through and evaluate the impact of these proposals, not just in rate cases, but in things that could be a capital improvement project that a utility is coming in with to increase water capacity, increase electricity capacity, to increase renewables that we review as well. We touch on for a financing order. It touches on such a broad spectrum of issues. It's really important that we have a broad range of expertise within our group to be able to address those. As former Commissioner Potter mentioned, what we do, we work to ensure utility services are delivered safely, reliably, importantly, affordably, cost-effectively, equitably, and aligned with the state's clean energy goals across the sectors that were discussed: electricity, gas, water, wastewater, telecom, transportation. And then we also work to educate consumers about their rights regarding regulated utilities and the services that are provided. And then how we do that is when there's matters that are brought before the Public Utilities Commission from utilities, they're basically requests for different things that I was mentioning earlier. We weigh in and make a recommendation as to what the impact of that is on customers and whether there's a benefit to customers. We seek to make recommendations to either improve the utilities proposal to increase the benefit to customers, or to recommend conditions, or not, in certain cases, not recommend approval if it's something that would not be in the interest of customers. We also have utility customers navigate how to file utility complaints with the Public Utilities Commission. And billing issues. We'll sometimes get customers who are just understandably distressed and might be facing disconnection with their utility. And we work to act as a liaison with the utility. And I will say Hawaiian Electric has been a great partner in that. And I believe we've been able to resolve pretty much all any customer that's come before us with a billing issue. We've been able to help resolve, at least get them on a payment plan or prevent them from being disconnected, and link them up with other resources to help with billing. And I'll share some of those that we have on the website at the end of this. One of the questions we often get is from community, like we need to hear from folks on the ground who this is really impacted by. We can go through all the analysis in the world, but at the end of the day, it's how people are individually impacted. It's really helpful to us in the PUC and the utilities for folks who attend public hearings. You can do so typically virtually or in person when the PUC sets those up. You can submit a public comment or file a complaint by going to the PUC's website, and we encourage you to provide your public comments within the dockets where the issues are being addressed. So if it's a new energy facility outside of where you live and you want to weigh in and how that's impacted, go to that docket and provide your comment there. It was reviewed by us, the Public Utilities Commission, and I'm sure many of the utilities as well. And you can join your conversation on important aspects. The Public Utilities Commission has the docket number 2022-0250, which is energy equity, and it's addressing key equity issues such as affordability, disconnections, and project siting of large-scale renewable energy projects. For more information, there was a question about social media. There's a QR code here on how to follow us on Facebook. We have our individual contact information, our website. And then I'd just point out some of the resources that were shared earlier. We have a resource available. It's a sort of a one-pager. It's 2 pages of a one-stop shop for folks who are interested in reducing their energy bills, how to take advantage of things like GEMS that were mentioned earlier, how to link people to Hawai'i Energy and the solutions that they have to help get involved in reducing residential electricity bills. There's Hawaiian Electric, who has a great resource on understanding your bills that Peter ran through earlier, and I put in the chat earlier to the video. And then the info I just mentioned on Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority. And thanks, that's it for me, and we're always available to talk if anybody has concerns. And again, I really encourage folks to make sure that their comments are provided on the public record by filing them within docket proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And hi, everyone. I'm Shay. I did not think I was going to have to come on, but Stacy's computer froze, so she's very happy that at least we're still going. I feel like some other people might have frozen, but it looks like not everyone. So thank you so much, Mike. Can you go back to
yes, slide 6?
And
yes, I can find where it went. Here we go.
Oh, it looks like Stacy might be back.
Slide 6. Okay, back.
Excellent. And I guess while I mean, I'm not going to do as good a job as Stacy, but I can continue to host if she can't get fully on. But can you also give an example of where the consumer advocate has submitted testimony for legislation or anything so that we
sure.
can better understand?
So there's always legislative things that come up from various utilities proposals or other outside groups or legislators themselves. So at least I'll give one example. There's right now with the independent power producers, Hawaiian Electric has legislation before that there is a state, basically it's an agreement to step in the event that, the unlikely event that Hawaiian Electric were to go be unable to pay an independent power producer. It just allows the state access to the revenues that are collected through those surcharges that pay the IPPs. And the concept behind that is that it provides greater assurance to the independent power producers, financiers, and they should be, in turn, get better financing rates, which in turn would translate to better rates for customers. So that's one example of a piece of legislation, but there's a whole wide variety of things, and it's not just Hawaiian Electric. It's utilities, it's legislators, it's individual members of the community who have legislation sponsored by a legislator. Yeah.
And I think it was telling that, you said that you have a full staff of attorneys and people with a lot of professional expertise in terms of interacting with the PUC. And I think that is something, like Stacy said before, we probably need to do a 1 to 2 hour tutorial after we figure it out ourselves, as far as how just regular citizens can interact. But is there anything that the consumer advocate can do to actually kind of support? And maybe Jennie has something that she can also add, but in terms of individuals being able to understand what's in the docket, how they can have some agency over what some of these costs and fees are, or even their own experiences. For example, if a fee is supposed to cover a certain thing and a customer maybe doesn't, or resident doesn't necessarily feel that that's serving them or doesn't know how it's serving them, if that makes sense.
We have, both us and the PUC have individuals who go out to the community and do different types of community awareness in terms of sharing with the public what our office does. And if there's ever a concern on anything, you can certainly call our office and we can help link you up with the right people who can help answer a question. If it's a concern they want to share, that I'm happy to hear from the general community at any time what their concern is and how we could see how that could be addressed within the docket. I mean, and that's one of the things we balance all the time, because we represent all customers and we factor that into the recommendations that we make to the Public Utilities Commission.
Well, thank you. And I wanted to pass it back to Stacy because she's back.
Sorry, everybody, my computer shut down, so I missed some of Mike's presentation, but I do want to open up for questions again. And while people think of your questions, I'm going to share a screenshot I took from my energy use portal a while back, just to give you a better idea of what that kind of looks like. This is when you log in on HECO's website, there's like a big button that says My Energy Use. And when you click on that, it takes you here. And you can change the zoom, and it starts it off by showing you 2 full weeks, and it's really overwhelming. It's like just lines everywhere. So what I learned from Walter at Hawai'i Energy was you have to bring that down to 1 or 2 days and change it to 15-minute intervals. And so this example here, you can see I have this weird spike happening in the middle of the night at like 2, 4, and 6 a.m. And then you kind of see right when we wake up in the morning at 8 a.m., a huge spike in energy use. And then it kind of levels out from here. And then you see like, so it's kind of weird. There's something weird happening here. So we need to like investigate what's going on at 2 and 4 and 6 in the morning that's making my energy spike. And Shayna, I believe you told me that there's a setting on here to set like an alert. I don't know where that would be. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I actually included a link in the chat that has more descriptions and instructions on how to set those alerts. So you can look at that website and it'll tell you like how you want to be able to be alerted if you're hitting a certain threshold on your energy usage.
Walter did
Stacey.
mention this could be a whole topic of its own. And so that's kind of the part 2 that we're planning, is to really dive deeper into this usage thing. But I wanted to give everybody at least the base knowledge that I've taken from all of these many conversations and show people what that looks like. And then April has a question. Is there a place where it is possible to see the renewable energy, green energy projects that have been paid into by Hawaiian Electric and are supported by consumers through fees on bills, when they were started, when they were completed or due to be completed, and the amount they have impacted costs for both Hawaiian Electric and the consumers? So long question, but basically, where can we see
I'll do a
where
plug.
the numbers?
Yeah, I'll do a major plug for our website, hawaiienelectric.com. There's a wealth of information on there. There is a renewable status board that we include all the projects that we're working on, all the ones that have been approved, and then which ones are coming up. So I'll also include that in the chat as well. Great question. Thank you.
And then Dick, I think you had a question as well.
Comment. Going back to the very first presentation by Peter and looking at the bill, I think the bill could be vastly improved in its delivery of information. I wish you could pull it up for a second. Let me give you 1 or 2 examples. Because right now, from the average consumer getting that bill with all the acronyms that are in there, abbreviations, it's impossible to understand what the bill is. And there's no reason sending people bills where going down to where the undercurrent charges there. You have things like IRP, PBF, those mean nothing to the average consumer. And what we need to do is write those words out. You've got so much white space there on those lines that could easily clarify things. Also, the print is very small. And I think that we could certainly find ways to open it up and let the print size, for many people cannot read tiny micro printing like this. And we need to find ways to do it. And I see that when you look at the whole thing, not just the screen right now that you have, but the whole screen. For example, there you see all those, all the white space on a screen. Let me go back to that. Yeah, wait, that one. Yeah, hold it. You have there all the various information, the graph. That's a great graph there, but you've got a lot of white space, and certainly you could find ways to increase the print and improve it. Also, where you have receive and deliver on the net metering things or the DEM things, it's very deliver and receive. No one understands, what are they receiving or is the company receiving? It's not clear. So under the word DEL, it should say delivered to customer, and under REC, received from customer. There should be a clarity. You got a whole white line there where you could insert a word that would make it clear which direction the electricity is going. Otherwise, it's very, and that goes also on the net metering thing. I have net metering, and it's very tough to figure it out. You have to go back and look at the graph and go back and forth. That should all be. In other words, I don't want to take up all the time, but I think the bill itself needs to be made much clearer and help customers better understand what's going on. I'll stop here. There are a lot of other comments, but I'll let other people make their comments.
Thanks for that feedback, Dick.
And let me just, one last thing for the consumer advocate. We see no presence of the consumer advocate on Maui. And I think what you need to do is periodically, once or twice, maybe twice or 3 times a year, hold an actual meeting where you open it up, a Zoom meeting for residents on each of the islands to make comments. It could be about the electric company, it could be some of the other areas that you monitor and give advice on. I think it'd be very important for the consumers to know that they're welcome, give you ideas and comments. Otherwise, it's very overwhelming to go to your website and try to figure out and say things. Please hold actual Zoom meetings on each island.
Okay, point taken. Appreciate that. We do go to Maui for other things. We were there on Monday or Tuesday for a meeting for public hearing, but I definitely hear you on the
Yeah,
other
but I'm talking for the
more general.
Yeah, that's when you know the meeting's
Exactly.
going on, but the public doesn't know you're here.
Right. Point taken. Thank you.
I'll just add to that comment a little bit. If you're open to changing the way that those fees are listed, it would be nice to know what the charge per kilowatt hour is on the bill, because Jenny's slide that had the kilowatt hour that's charged for the public benefit fund, I had never seen that number before. And when I do look at my bill, I wonder, what if these are flat fees? And now that I've seen a few, I know which ones are flat fees because they're the same for everyone. Um, but it would be just helpful, I think, for people to know this much of your bill is actually going to fund Hawai'i Energy so that they can help us with energy audits and give rebates for energy efficient appliances and all of those things. Because once I realized that I was actually helping to pay for those things, I'm like, I'm going to contact them and get my energy audit. I'm going to get my rebate because I helped pay for that. And so I think that I uh, I just kind of want to recap some of the other questions that we've had as in preparation for this webinar, that HECO is actually not allowed to help us, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Shayna, is not allowed to do like that type of education because that is Hawai'i Energy's job. And maybe you'll say it more eloquently than me.
No, we're happy to always talk about energy efficiency. We do different presentations, based on public interest, and we can provide that. But Hawai'i Energy is a great partner and resource. It was set up, through Peter's explanation to have a whole group dedicated to provide energy efficiency information to all of our customers and community. So it's a great resource to have. And, we're just happy to talk about all kinds of different topics, whether it's understanding your bill to energy efficiency from Hawai'i Electric's perspective. Thank you.
And just while we're talking about giving suggestions, I just know that when I was trying to get help for my bill, I kind of said this at the beginning, I was calling the number on the back. And that person's job is more so to collect payment or maybe do some basic troubleshooting. But I had no idea who I was supposed to call when I was having this issue and who even exists in this world to help me. I only knew to call HECO. And so it might be nice if those billing people were trained of like, hey, maybe call Hawai'i Energy or maybe call this subcontractor, or that's actually a PUC question or a consumer advocate question, if they had a way to field those phone calls to the right agencies, there might be a little bit less frustration on the other end of the line, I can say from my personal experience. And Shay also has some more to say.
Oh, I was just going to say, going back to, Dick's comments about the bill and Stacy, when she first reached out with her energy issues, and I went to look, I knew about Hawai'i Energy, but she didn't. And I think it would have saved everybody a lot of time, including whoever kept having to answer Stacy's calls at Hawaiian Electric, if it just said on the bill, if you are having unusual issues, with your energy use, and this is how you reach, Hawai'i Energy, the residential, if it's on a residential bill, the commercial. And then even saying that statement that Stacy said, your bill is helping to pay for this service, so please use it. They do energy audits, or, however you need to say it. But it was actually took many, many steps. And just the fact that I've known Walter Enomoto, who's on here from Hawai'i Energy for 30 years, to actually help make this connection. And I'm sure there's plenty of other people who have no idea. And I think there's a real communication issue, just generally speaking, partially just because the landscape is so complex.
There are important, let me just add another dimension. There are important policy questions that really need to be answered. I don't know if anybody's looking at them. For example, and I'll give a basic one. Is it more economical overall for let's say the island of Maui, to have big battery systems like we have at the solar farms right now, or having lots of panels on everybody's roof and having to pay for them and maintain them, et cetera, independently. What is a more economical? I would love somebody to say, now, if it's more economical for us to have centralized battery systems for everybody, let's go that route. But if it's better to have it on people's roof, distributed, let's go that way. But right now, people don't know that. No one's making that decision. That's something that needs to be answered in cutting down costs. I don't know if Jennifer.
I was thinking Jenny might have some thoughts on.
I do, and I was like, should I take this offline? So
it's a fundamental question that needs to be answered.
well, I think, Dick, one thing that we have to remember is that when it's on rooftop, it's private investment. And that means that consumers are making a private investment and a decision to invest their own money into that asset. When you have something that's a central and utility scale, that's socialized. So that's coming across all of the ratepayers, and everybody's contributing to it, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential. It becomes an asset that's basically owned by the utility or by a independent power producer. And so that's a very different structure for how you're talking about making these investments. So it is typically cheaper to have larger scale. You have economies of scale. And so that is a less expensive route. But the private investment by consumers is actually really, it's kind of ideal because you're taking the burden off of the ratepayers. However, you have some of the cost shifting that comes from, in particular, DER programs that pay things like retail rates to consumers for the energy that they export onto the grid. That becomes a cost shift onto other ratepayers, as someone asked the question earlier about, whether the cost to pay customers for the solar power that they export from their rooftops to the grid, is that in the non-energy surcharge? And it is. So
yeah, there's an equity question also. Most of the solar panels on people's roofs are of people who own their own home and are higher income. We have on Maui many thousands of ohanas which have no solar panel on top because the renters can't afford to put it on. So if we go with a system where the panels are on individual homes, it's really screwing the lower income people in our community. And that's why a centralized battery has a particular advantage of getting a lower rate for those people who can least afford electricity.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's those type of questions. I don't know whether it gets answered at the PUC or the legislature or somewhere. We need to answer. These are island-wide issues.
Yeah, and that's one thing that the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute is trying to get behind. And so that's one thing now that we're really tackling, looking at some of the reliability and capacity issues, in particular on Maui Island, facing, looking at ahead of what's happening with some of the decommissioning and retirement of some of the facilities. How do we make our system more reliable? And typically that's coming from more centralized assets. So like the battery that's happening at Waiana, BESS, is a large scale, it's a 40 megawatt battery that's going in Maui. And there's also building synchronous condensers out of the Kahalui power plant. Those are going to be there to support the entire grid and help stabilize even the assets that are distributed. And so, because those distributed assets also add variability to the grid as well. So those centralized assets and infrastructure do help stabilize the grid and provide that energy that's necessary to power everyone when the sun's not shining or the wind's not blowing. So you're absolutely right, Dick. But that's one thing, you get in touch with me. We can talk about things, the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute is really trying to tackle some of these questions that are more policy oriented, but not, don't fall within the purview of the consumer advocate or the PUC. Like there'd be places that we would inform with that information, and say, here's our research findings. So let's talk. We can go offline.
And Jenny,
Then
can
I
you
could just
like 2 sentences saying what HNEI does, because you mostly talked about the PUC because we asked you to, but
yeah, absolutely. So the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute is an entity that was actually it's funded by the state barrel tax, which is a tax that's placed on imports of oil, of barrels of oil, and it is intended to support clean energy research and development. So it does applied research as well as more desktop research. It has a whole group that is dedicated to grid integration and special materials and wave energy and hydrogen facilities. So it has a host of different activities that it pursues under the barrel tax to try and advance Hawaii's clean energy into, our 2045 goals and help reduce the reliance on fossil fuels and create a more independent Hawaii that's depending on natural resources to produce energy. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Jenny. Peter, you had your hand raised.
Yes.
And I just wanted to I know we're over time, but there are a couple like myth busting things that I want to make sure we cover after this, just so it's in the recording. So go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, really fast to tag on to respond to Dick. Jenny's characterized the large versus private solar issue accurately. I wanted to add that in Hawaiian Electric's integrated grid plans for the future, in order for us to meet our state mandated renewable energy targets, we need both the grid scale renewable energy projects as well as the private renewable energy projects. So it's not a question of one or the other. We really need both, and that's the only way we're going to achieve our state mandated targets. And it's just a matter of, how can we do that effectively? But we do need both.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The incentives right now, people who put it on their roof get a tax incentive. So that's one public expenditure already there. So would it be better to use that money that the public is paying to put in bigger batteries centralized, or to keep subsidizing individuals on the roof? All that in the mathematics. Really what I'm saying is, what is the best way to get electricity at the lowest cost? And that discussion needs to be modeled. I don't think it's particularly complex. Each island will be different, et cetera, because of the wind versus solar versus, et cetera, but geothermal and on Big Island. But what we need to do is look at that model and then begin making public policy decisions.
But just to add to that, I agree. It's about the most cost-effective way to meet our renewable energy targets. And a lot of these questions are being vetted and contemplated in the integrated grid planning process that goes before PUC, CA weighs in, public has the opportunity to weigh on, and Hawaiian Electric's proposing plans. And I also point folks to docket number 2019-0323, where the compensation mechanisms for these programs, for the DER, the customer resources side of these programs are being investigated. And from our office's perspective, we have significant concerns that the rates that are ultimately determined from those programs do not have a cost shift onto customers who cannot participate in that program. That is a big concern of our office.
Yeah, that brings up a really good point, because the PBF surcharge, if most of that money is going towards rebates that disproportionately benefit homeowners, then that's like renters are paying into a program that pretty much only benefits people who can afford those appliances or whatever
Exactly.
that to buy those things. So I love that is something the consumer advocate is thinking about. I also wanted to make sure that we talk a little bit about time of use, because I know I personally have had a lot of salespeople come up to my house and make some statements about time of use that I have verified are not true. So I don't know if anybody in here, I mean, maybe Shay, you'd be better to talk about time of use as a consumer of it, but I just wanted to be very clear that time of use is not something that is being forced upon ratepayers or HECO customers. There were some pilot programs and voluntary programs that other people are on, and I want to show an example of a time of use bill, and maybe let Shay and Shayna can talk a bit about that myth busting about time of use.
So I guess this is my bill.
Which one? This one.
It's an $80 bill. Yeah. So just I had a lot of questions about time of use, partially because my family's been on time of use for almost 10 years, because we were part of apparently a a early pilot, which I only understood till Peter explained it to us on Monday. But it works very well for me and my family, but that's because I'm a family of 2 currently because our children have grown and left. So it's only 2 adults. We have a solar water heater. We have propane for our gas stove. Although we have an electric car, we charge it for free at the county charging station that's only a few blocks from our house. So we have we're kind of lucky in a lot of ways in terms of being able to keep our, and we work at home. So we're able to take advantage of the 9 to 5 and do, if we use our dryer, which we don't usually because we live in Haiku and our clothes dry really fast on the line when it's not raining. But in our dishwasher and that sort of thing. So time of use obviously would not work for every family, but it can work very well if you have the right sort of configuration. But then I've now learned, and Peter or Shana can jump in, that there was a pilot program that came after quite a few years after we got on this, and that several thousand people across the state have been involved in it. But now people were given the choice whether to stay on. And then as far as a more universal implementation, that is awaiting decisions by the PUC. Is that a fair explanation?
Yeah, if I can set the landscape on time of use, the company just completed a time of use rate pilot that ran from February 2024 through January 2025. That pilot has been completed, and we're in the evaluation period, I guess I would characterize it, where the company has to provide a final report on the pilot at May 1st. So the landscape of time of use rates is right now, there are no time of use rate opportunities for customers who are not on time of use rates. The commission has basically said, we want to consider longer time of use rates over the longer horizon that makes sense for everybody. So we don't want you to volunteer into a time of use rate that we may have had in the recent past that we don't think makes sense for the long term. So there's no entry point for customers to go to time of use rates right now. However, if you are on a time of use rate, whether you entered during our pilot or whether you entered into one of our legacy time of use rate options, as you have, Shay, you're allowed to stay on those rates until some future time of use rate is approved by the PUC. And then at that point, the equitable approach might be to move everyone over a transition period to a new time of use rate so that all customers have the same opportunity. It's a matter of creating reasonable rates and applying those as an equitable opportunity to all customers. But we are in a transition. We don't know when that's going to be resolved, quite frankly. So stay tuned.
Thank you. So it is, I guess it's frustrating, especially, you know, when the Sunrun people, not to name names, knock on your door and tell you something that's not true. And, you know, luckily, I know it, Stacy knows it, but it would be nice for other people, since it is scary when people tell you that this is going to happen. And I guess there hasn't really been anything in the media or anything one way or the other about it. So, you know, even a press release that explains it much more clearly and says, you know, this is definitely, and that if people want to, you know, comment on it, I guess they can comment on the docket, right? But I think that would be really helpful because it is pretty rampant, that misinformation.
And then I just realized I missed a couple of questions in the chat. Sorry, I know we'll end exactly at 5:30. If when do those biannual fee adjustment hearings happen at the PUC, and how like is it a regularly scheduled thing, or is it something that we need to be on the alerts to know when those are going to happen?
They aren't actually hearings. They don't hold hearings for them. It's a review that the commission does. And I believe there's one filing is in October and the other I believe is in April. Is that right, Mike? For the RBA?
They're at September 30th and March 31st.
So I was close.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's when we get them, I think. So
that's when you get them.
yeah. So not me anymore. Like saying we. So yeah, that's those filings are, and that's one reason signing up for the daily activity report, or you can sign up for an alert that would come in for that docket specifically. I would contact maybe Mike's team or HECO to determine what docket those are actually filed under. I think it's for the most recent rate case, right?
You're talking the RBA filings?
Yeah.
Is I put it in
You did.
yeah, it's in the chat. It's
Okay.
case numbers 2023-04-666, I think.
Good
It's in the
job.
chat. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Good.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if you flag that, you'll get notifications when a new filing occurs, and then that's when you would be able to make comments on it and submit into that docket.
Thank you so much for that. And then the only other one I missed, and I know this is more of a Hawai'i energy question, was asking about promotion of timers and other things to help people reduce energy usage at night. So I just wanted to make sure I voiced that question, knowing that the best answer is not here, but are there any types of incentives for people to install these kinds of like timers and things to reduce usage?
Hi, Stacy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thanks, Walter. I was hoping you'd
Hi.
chime in.
So even though I'm, involved in our commercial programs, timers are not by itself a part of the program because they're normally tied with our solar hot water program. So if you install a solar hot water system, it's mandated as part of the program guidelines and requirements that a time clock is also added to that. So that in the event that we have a stormy, rainy day, there's not enough solar resource to recharge and reheat the water in the system, that the backup element could turn on at set times in the afternoon or in the early morning to make sure that you had hot water when you needed it, despite bad weather or something like that. Time clocks by themselves can vary in terms of being able to turn them off manually or set them through for periods like I guess when we had initially talked, to make sure that it is not turning on during periods where you really don't need that hot water on there. Those are usually minimal costs. Time clocks for water heaters run, I think, $40 plus or minus 10, depending on who you get it from. And then it's a simple electrical hookup that any electrician worth his tool belt can do easily on that. Our focus is more like, what are the existing technologies in place? So appliances, hot water heating, things like that. And as newer technology comes into the market, we're evaluating a number of different things. I know in the residential program, from what I understand, and we're hoping to see some really neat additions to the program as we move forward. So hope that kind of answered that.
No, that's exactly the answer I was hoping to get. And I can say these timers do work very well. But just make sure that you reset them if the power goes out. Because that is one of my issues one of my many issues I had at my house. And yeah, we are at 5:30, officially a half hour over time. But I just really want to thank everybody for your time. I know this can be kind of a controversial conversation. And I think and we're hoping to continue this conversation to talk more about usage. I'm also coming up with a YouTube channel for us to share a lot of these recordings on, because we have talked about some of these things in the past. And I do want to make sure that I plug the Maui Community Energy Alliance as well, because that is essentially how Shay and I met and developed this project. And it is a project under the Taryn James Young Foundation. Genesis just put a link to that in the chat. And we have an open meeting every second Friday of the month at 9 a.m. And sometimes we have guest speakers. Other times they're just more open conversations for us to talk about all of the things that people have to say and share about our energy future on Maui. And Genesis, if you want to like talk for a little bit, I didn't really do deep introductions at the beginning, but since this is recorded, if people have to go, that's fine. But I would love to give Genesis a chance to talk about the Energy Alliance too.
I just want to thank Stacy and Shay for all the work you're doing that, and all of the speakers, Peter, Jenny, Shana, Mike, and also Walter for coming today. And we just continue the conversation to try and make a better energy future for Maui. Thanks.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to stop the recording now. Bye.
I wanted to thank everyone for the robust chat. I think that this is like one of the most information heavy chats I've ever seen, with so many really good links. And I hope that Stacy and I can figure out a really good way to have sort of a central place to put that information, because I think just going through it, I'm like, wow, this is like all the different places, but people need to go and start getting their information.
I think there's a way to have the chat in the recording. So I'm going to play with my settings and figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful for people. Well, thanks you guys so much.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great.
Be in
Thanks
touch
everybody for
soon.
coming.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, please.
So we're continuing the conversation a little bit, and Dick Mayer has some suggestions on cheap things you can do to adjust your water heater and save a little bit of money. So go ahead, Dick.
So even if you do not have solar panels on your hot water heater, all of these are worthwhile. Number one, reduce the temperature, and you can take off that little panel on the side of the thing and change it usually comes at 140, change it down to about 120. Now, if it turns out that is not hot enough, you can always move it back to 125 and see what it is. It's very simple to change. Number two, put an insulation jacket, a piece of insulation around your hot water heater, and you can buy a jacket. Home Depot, Lowe's would probably sell those. I got mine 27 years ago. It was cheap. Third thing is you can get foam things on the water pipe. Now, since your pipes from the water heater to your bathroom and to your kitchen are probably already in, what you would have to do is cut it, slice it, and then pull it apart and put it onto the pipe itself. And if you want to put tape over it to hold it there, it would be fine. If you do the brand new pipes, you can obviously just slide it on the first time. Fourth thing, what was it? My mind is, what was the other thing? Well, getting the solar hot water panels on the roof would certainly be a worthwhile thing. And then the timer.
And a timer.
And the timer was the other one, where the timer you put on, usually the best thing to do is before you're actually going to use hot water. So you put it on, let's say, from 5 to 6 a.m. If you take your showers in the morning. If there's a big use of it in the evening, you would put it on probably from 4 to 5 in the evening. But that's all. Even 30 minutes is usually heats up the water that you'll need. But certainly an hour is long enough. And then what you don't want to do is you want the timer to turn off the water heater before you take the shower, because there's no sense heating up water that you're not going to be using for another 12 hours. So you turn off and just knowing how to set your timer. Now, the one thing Stacy mentioned earlier that is important is if there's an electric shortage and the timer then is not set properly, you'll have to go down and reset your timer. That's the only.
The timer thing is important, because mine reset to click on every hour. So it was actually doing the opposite of what I wanted it to do, and made a my bill go like crazy.
That's it. When you had that 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning things, that's when your water heater was kicking on and you weren't using that hot water. So what you really want to do is have it heated from, let's say, 5 to 6 in the morning. Just when you get up, you can take your showers, or some people, if you're a single person, you always take your shower at night, you'd have it in the afternoon go on for an hour. It takes a little bit of playing around, but not much.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm gonna pause the recording again.